December 15, 2025, 4:00 a.m. The port of Novorossiysk sits quiet on Russia's Black Sea coast. Massive barges block the harbor entrance. Security cameras sweep the docks. Inside, Russia's most valuable submarine is tied up at the pier. A Kilo-class attack boat worth $400 million, armed with 4 Kalibr cruise missiles, the same missiles that have been hitting Ukrainian cities for 3 years. The submarine is 20 meters from the dock. The water is calm, and somewhere beneath the surface something is moving, something the Russians never expected. Can an underwater drone really strike a submarine in one of Russia's most protected naval bases? That's what we're about to find out. For 3 years, Russia's Black Sea Fleet had been a weapon of terror. Those Kalibr missiles could strike anywhere in Ukraine. Hospitals, schools, power plants. Each submarine in the fleet carried 4 of them, and the Kilo-class submarines were especially dangerous. NATO called them black holes because they were so quiet, sonar couldn't detect them, they could disappear for weeks, strike without warning, then vanish again. But here's what changed. Since February 2022, Ukraine had been hunting Russia's fleet. They started with surface drones, small boats packed with explosives, remote-controlled. In April 2022, they sank the Moskva, Russia's flagship, a massive cruiser worth hundreds of millions. Then they hit the Rostov-on-Don submarine in 2023, Storm Shadow missiles. The submarine was destroyed while it sat in Sevastopol's shipyard. By 2024, Ukraine had damaged or destroyed 26 Russian warships, 1/3 of the entire Black Sea Fleet. The Russians had to retreat. They pulled their fleet out of Crimea, too dangerous. They moved to Novorossiysk, a port on mainland Russia. Safer, they thought. They built defenses, massive floating barriers at the harbor entrance, anti-drone nets, security patrols, camera systems everywhere, multiple layers of protection. This was supposed to be a fortress, and for a while it worked. Surface drones couldn't get past those barriers. The Russians felt secure. Their submarines were safe. Their Kalibr missiles could keep striking Ukraine. But Ukraine's engineers were thinking differently. Surface drones had done their job. They'd pushed the Russian fleet back. But now the Russians had adapted. Those harbor barriers stopped surface attacks. So Ukraine went deeper. They developed something new, the Subsea Baby, an underwater drone, unlike anything used in naval warfare before. It could dive beneath those barriers, navigate underwater, find its target, and strike where the Russians weren't looking. The planning took months. Ukraine's security service, the SBU, worked with the Ukrainian Navy. They studied Novorossiysk's defenses, mapped the harbor layout, identified the submarine pens. The Kilo-class submarines were priority targets. 4 of them were stationed at Novorossiysk. Each one could launch Kalibr strikes. Taking out even one would reduce Russia's missile capacity, save Ukrainian lives, but the operation was incredibly risky. Think about the challenges. Novorossiysk is 300 kilometers from Ukrainian-controlled territory. The drone would have to travel that entire distance, underwater without being detected, then navigate into a heavily defended harbor, find the right submarine, and detonate at exactly the right spot to cause maximum damage. One mistake and the mission fails. One detection and Russian defenses would destroy the drone before it reached the target. Here's where it gets interesting. The SBU didn't just rely on the drone. They hacked into Novorossiysk's security cameras, the same cameras the Russians used to protect their base. Ukrainian intelligence could now watch Russian naval activity in real time. They could see which submarines were in port, where they were docked, when security patrols moved. This gave them perfect intelligence. They knew exactly when to strike. The drone itself was remarkable. Details are still classified, but here's what we know. It was built from the Sea Baby platform Ukraine had been using for surface attacks. But this version could submerge, navigate using GPS and possibly sonar, carry enough explosive to crack a submarine hull, and operate for hours, maybe days, without surfacing. The warhead was placed to target the most vulnerable part of a submarine, the stern, where the propulsion system sits. Where the diving planes are located, destroy that and the submarine can't move, can't dive, can't operate. December 14th, the Russians were celebrating. The submarine fleet was safe in port. The new year was approaching. In less than 2 weeks, Russia would mark the holiday, but Ukrainian intelligence saw an opportunity. Satellite images showed 2 Kilo-class submarines docked at Novorossiysk. Side by side, perfect targets. The operation was greenlit. The Subsea Baby deployed. The drone entered the water far from Novorossiysk, descended to depth, started its long journey toward the Russian base. For hours it traveled underwater, silent, invisible. The Russians had no idea it was coming. Their defenses were designed for surface threats. The floating barriers were useless against something underwater. The patrols were looking at the water's surface, not beneath it. By the time the drone reached Novorossiysk, it was already too late to stop it. Navigating the harbor was the hardest part. The drone had to make several turns in confined waters, avoid detection, find the submarine pen. Ukrainian intelligence helped. Those hacked cameras showed the exact location. The drone moved closer. The Kilo-class submarine was right there, tied to the pier, completely exposed. The drone positioned itself near the stern, 20 meters from the submarine, the perfect strike point. 4:00 a.m. December 15th. The explosion ripped through the pre-dawn darkness. A massive blast, water and debris shot into the air. The force was incredible. The pier itself took damage, chunks of concrete blown away. The submarine's stern section absorbed the full impact. The propulsion system destroyed, the diving planes shattered, the hull cracked. In seconds, Russia's $400 million submarine was crippled. The blast was so powerful that security cameras captured it. The SBU later released that footage. You can see the quiet harbor, ships in the background, then a massive explosion, the force lifting water dozens of meters high. This wasn't a small charge, this was designed to destroy, and it worked. Satellite imagery taken days later confirmed the damage. The submarine was still at the pier, unable to move. The stern section submerged. The Russians tried to claim nothing happened. But the evidence was overwhelming. Russia's response was immediate denial. Their Black Sea Fleet spokesman said the attack failed, no ships damaged, no submarines hit, everything normal. But the satellite images told a different story, so did the destroyed pier. So did the fact that other Russian vessels quickly dispersed from Novorossiysk. They scattered to different ports, a cautionary move. If one submarine could be hit, others were vulnerable too. Here's why this attack matters so much. This was the first time in history an underwater drone struck a submarine. No navy had ever done this before, not in training, not in combat, never. Ukraine had just changed naval warfare forever. Think about what this means. Submarines are supposed to be the ultimate stealth weapon, hard to find, hard to hit, protected by layers of defense. But Ukraine showed that even submarines are vulnerable, especially when they're in port. Especially when an enemy has innovation on their side. Strategic impact was immediate. Russia now had 3 Kalibr-capable submarines instead of 4 at Novorossiysk. That's a 25% reduction in missile launch capacity, fewer strikes on Ukraine, fewer terror attacks on civilians, and the damaged submarine couldn't be easily repaired. To fix it, Russia would have to lift it out of the water, put it in dry dock. That means exposing it to the air, making it vulnerable to another strike, so the submarine stays damaged, out of action. Basically useless. But the psychological damage was even bigger. Novorossiysk was supposed to be safe. It's on Russian territory, hundreds of kilometers from the front line, protected by modern defenses. If Ukraine could strike there, nowhere was safe. Russian naval commanders had to rethink everything, every port, every anchorage, every submarine base, all vulnerable. This forced Russia to invest heavily in new defenses, underwater sensors, anti-diver teams, more patrols, all expensive. All requiring manpower, all because of one successful drone strike. The timing was perfect too. This happened during intense diplomatic talks. Ukraine and Western allies were discussing peace terms, security guarantees, ceasefire conditions, and right in the middle of these negotiations, Ukraine proved it could still strike deep into Russian territory. This strengthened Ukraine's position, showed they weren't desperate, weren't weak, could still inflict serious damage on Russia's military. That matters when you're negotiating. Western analysts were stunned. The Pentagon, NATO, naval experts worldwide. Everyone was studying this attack because if Ukraine could do this with limited resources, what could a major power do? The US Navy started reviewing its own submarine defenses. So did China, so did every navy with submarines. The age of underwater drones had arrived, and Ukraine had written the playbook. Let's talk about the bigger picture. Since 2022, Ukraine has been fighting a war they weren't supposed to win. Russia had the larger military, more ships, more submarines, more missiles, but Ukraine had something else. Innovation, creativity, willingness to try new tactics. Those Sea Baby drones started as an experiment. Now they've destroyed or damaged dozens of Russian vessels. The Moskva, the Rostov-on-Don, the Ivanovets, the Sergei Kotov, ship after ship, and now a submarine. This attack also showed Ukraine's intelligence capabilities. Hacking Russian security cameras, that's sophisticated cyber warfare. Getting real-time intelligence from inside an enemy base. Planning a complex operation, coordinating between different agencies. The SBU and the Navy working together. This wasn't luck. This was professional military operations. Ukraine has become a genuine military power, not just surviving, winning battles, changing the rules of warfare. For Russia, this is a disaster that keeps getting worse. The Black Sea Fleet was supposed to dominate the Black Sea, control shipping lanes, launch missile strikes, Project Power. Instead, it's retreated to port, lost a third of its vessels, and now can't even guarantee the safety of submarines in its own harbors. This is embarrassing for a nation that claims to be a military superpower. How do you explain to your people that a smaller country destroyed your submarine in your own waters? The international reaction was significant. Britain's Ministry of Defense released an analysis praising Ukraine's innovation. They called it an unprecedented strike, said it demonstrated rapidly developing proficiency in maritime warfare. NATO officials studied the operation. Western intelligence services shared the details because this matters to everyone. If drone technology can do this now, what happens in 5 years, 10 years? The implications are massive. And here's what makes this even more impressive. Ukraine built these drones domestically with limited resources during wartime while being constantly attacked. They didn't have years of research and development. They didn't have unlimited budgets. They had necessity, the need to protect their country, the drive to survive. And that drove innovation faster than any peacetime program could. So what happens next? Russia will try to adapt. They'll build better defenses, install underwater sensors, deploy more anti-sabotage forces. But Ukraine will adapt too, make the drones smarter, harder to detect, more lethal. This is the new reality of warfare, not just soldiers and tanks, not just planes and missiles, but drones, underwater, in the air, on the surface, cheap, effective, game-changing. The damaged submarine still sits in Novorossiysk, a $400 million monument to Ukrainian innovation. The Russians can't move it, can't repair it safely, can't hide the fact that it happened. Every day it sits there, it's a reminder that the Black Sea belongs to whoever controls the drones, and right now that's Ukraine. This attack proves something crucial. You don't need the biggest military to win, you need the smartest tactics, the willingness to innovate, the courage to try what's never been done before. Ukraine took a technology and pushed it further than anyone thought possible. They changed naval warfare forever. And they did it on December 15, 2025, in the pre-dawn darkness of Novorossiysk harbor. What would you have done differently if you were planning this operation? Could Russia have prevented this attack? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want to see more stories about military innovation and modern warfare, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. Because the future of warfare is happening right now, and you don't want to miss it.